Want to remind everybody, DeMontis Sabonis update. MRI revealed a moderate ankle sprain. Reevaluated in 10 days. The Kings are 3-6 without him. So it looks like at a minimum, he's missing Cleveland, Chicago, Milwaukee, OKC, Boston, and Portland. Sounds like he'll be back right around the road trip, the 6-game roadie. So, as we talked about in the last segment, as we've been talking about all week, it's bracket time. Mm-hmm. Tournament has already started with their play-ins. And tomorrow, it will be literal madness all day. One of the best sports holidays, if not the best, of the year. Mainly, in my opinion, because it gives us an opportunity to speak to the man, the myth, the legend, the one who knows his brackets. And for all of you, get out your pencil, get out your pen, take notes. Little David in the back's got his pencil out. He's taking notes. Way too young to gamble. 1-800-GAMBLER. Bobby Brackets. Bobby Gerould joins us. Good morning, Bob.
How you guys doing?
Great.
Excited. How are you?
I'm all right. You know, I'm ready to go. I enjoyed the first game last night. The second game was wow. That surprised me actually a little bit.
Yeah, actually, I think some people thought San Diego State might be able to do some damage if they got through that. And does that change your thought on Carolina, just how impressive they were?
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of interesting because I pay attention to that Ken Pomeroy's site, kenpom.com. And, you know, by his metrics, North Carolina should have been safely in. I think he had them, I think they're, you know, in the top, they're 30th in his net rating overall. So, you know, that's a pretty darn good.
Oh, sorry. That was me. Go ahead. Trying to monitor. Sorry, everybody. I like to monitor our guests on StreamYard real time. You should mute the tab before you bring it up. Anyways, you were talking about Ken Pom. Sorry for blowing out your ears.
No, that's all right. So North Carolina was, you know, a top 30 team by Ken Pom. And so, and they looked like it last night. You know, San Diego State just looked like they're a year away or so from being ready to get down with RJ Davis and you know, the Carolina shooters. They were outstanding.
So I think my question is this. I had the winner, to be fair, I had the winner of that game winning their first round matchup, regardless of who it was going to be. But in your opinion, do you think, is North Carolina going to be overrated now coming into this tournament by a lot of people?
Maybe so. Yeah, I mean, you know, the recency bias is, Dave. I mean, that's everyone remembers what they last saw, and you know, I try to live by those rules of avoiding recency bias. That you're never as good as or as bad as your last game, and so North Carolina is probably not going to shoot that great of a number again. You know, but San Diego State, I do think it's interesting that San Diego State's known as this great defensive team. And last night, that didn't matter at all. I mean, it was clearly offense. And there's a few of those situations, I think, in this, you know, in the brackets, if you really look at them, there are some teams that are known as defensive teams that really struggle to score. St. Mary's would be one of them. You know, Clemson is another one. Will the defense hold, or is a team like McNeese going to be able to, you know, to upset them and get it done? Will Vanderbilt beat St. Mary's? I think those are a couple possibilities. Another team that might struggle a little bit is Texas A&M. Actually, you know, they're kind of a weird team. They don't have any great individual talent by my estimation, but then, you know, they have some pretty big wins this season. But when I really look at them, it's kind of hard to figure like how did they win games? So you know, maybe Yale messes around and gets in there and beats them.
So just to follow up on that, because this is the time of overanalyzation. So you mentioned San Diego State's vaunted defense gets shredded by North Carolina. Do we run the risk of overanalyzing by saying, maybe these ACC teams have a little better offense than we think, or hey, maybe these insert conference of team that did that, maybe their defense or maybe that conference is a little bit weaker? Is it a risk to look at the commonality of opponents still remaining, for example, in the bracket and taking those liberties? Or is that a thought process you would support looking at?
Dave, that was a a heck of a question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Look at that.
Are we?
$2
Right off the top.
right in my pocket, man.
Yeah.
That might have been too much for me right
Wow.
there.
Thank you.
So
You can handle it.
I would say this, and I said this last year, and I'll always say this. You never really know with these young kids what's going to happen. And in a one-game scenario, I mean, North Carolina is a lane violation away from possibly beating Duke, right? And Duke's supposed to be the number one team, and North Carolina is supposed to be the team that just barely got in, or they were the last team in. So, it's incredibly close. It's a basket here, it's a basket there, it's a bad call. It's whatever it is. So I don't think any of these teams are perfect by any means. I think Florida is probably the closest to that, but again, you got to figure in recency bias there, right? The last thing everybody saw was them winning the SEC championship, and they played a great game. Can they do that for 6 more games, and continue to play the way they've been playing? They do really have some good guards, and they have a deep team. They're talented. So Florida is definitely one of the favorites, I think.
As we look at the beginning stages, I know we'll probably get to your nuts and bolts of this a little bit into our conversation, but people love upsets, Bob. That is part of the charm of March Madness. Mm-hmm. A lot of it, obviously, is the team. Are they capable? And 2 is the draw. So as you look at the field, do you have a couple of upsets that you like, particularly in the first round, that people go, wow, that team beat that team? Those kind of upsets.
Yeah, so it might not be super crazy, but I on my bracket, I do have North Carolina winning. They'll be an 11 seed, taking on Ole Miss, and I do have New Mexico moving on as well. And New Mexico is a number 10 seed. Beyond that, I think you can make a case for Yale because, like I mentioned, I'm not wild about Texas A&M. I think you can make a case for Vandy because St. Mary's really struggles to provide offense. And I think you can make a case for McNeese. So if I had to give you 5, those would be the 5, but I really only feel strongly about 2 of them, which would be number 11, North Carolina winning, and number 10, New Mexico winning. So, you could pick upsets as much as you want, and there's going to be some, but I also don't think that's the most prudent strategy if you're trying to win somebody J. Ross's bracket tournament and take home some of the big cash. I'm just trying to run with Sean Cunningham. That's right. I mean, Sean over the years,
he does well.
He has really proven that he gets a lot of this stuff right, and I think I keep. New Mexico messed me up last year, and here I am, on their bandwagon again a little bit. Gonzaga messed me up last year, but I'm still going to pick them. So I tend to like who I like, and I kind of like the styles of those teams, and they just got to come through for us, right?
Jason, you've done this a long time. What year did I forget? What year did Sean win the league?
I don't know. They all blend a few years back, but he usually, as Bob's point, he usually does very well.
Oh, did he win? I was trying to be a thing.
I think he did.
Did he? I was
trying to do I think he did too.
Oh, did he win one? Okay, fine. I take it back.
Yeah, I just usually look up and I see that he's in the money, so I know.
Yeah, because he has 8 brackets, Bobby.
Is that how he does it? Right. I think he does do 2. He does do 2, right?
Yeah, he does 2.
Well, and it's actually perfect segue into this question because there's the basketball analysis, and then there's the stuff everyone cares about, the gambling bracket analysis. So I never do this, Bobby. I changed my champion last night. And part of it is I'm looking at the odds, and Duke is the favorite. Okay. Sure. Followed by Auburn and Florida. They're tied at 7-2, and then Houston at 15-2. Those are your ones. Right. Exactly. So I had Duke, and the decision I came to is that it's, as you just mentioned, it's far from silly to believe, for example, Florida would win the whole thing. They might be the most complete team in the tournament, but also I know, and Jason knows this too better than anyone, the large leader in the clubhouse is going to be Duke. So when you're getting to the 50-50s at the end of your brackets, do you ever factor in, okay, if I pick Duke, I'm going to be in a big giant pile with 500 other people. I'm going to need to get all the McNeese states right in the first round. Whereas I went, you know what, screw it. If Duke wins, I'm out. But if they don't, I got a pretty good shot with a Florida or an Auburn or whomever. Does that ever factor in when you're doing
Oh
a
yeah,
bracket?
I would think so. I think you have to be concerned. People who play daily fantasy sports know all about that, right? You don't want to be too chalky. You want to have some variance and give yourself a chance. You know, if you can get a team that's a little bit lower owned that you believe in, sure, that might give you a chance. You know, but at the end of the day, the results are going to speak for themselves. So it's always that double-edged sword. But yeah, absolutely. I think if it's close, go with the team that you think less people will pick for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And Duke is, I mean, it's not only a brand name, but like looking at your site, hoopobsession.com, you've got Cooper Flagg #1. That's not a surprise. A lot of people love him. Do you think a guy like that has the ability to, I mean, not only is Duke good, he's great. Like, can he carry Duke to a title?
Yeah, if he's, if his ankle's okay, and man, that was a bad roll of the ankle,
It
but
sure was.
man, it was ugly. But he's the real deal, guys. If you really look back over the years, and I've said this before, but forwards, a power forward that's skilled is probably the hardest thing to do if you're looking at filling a spot, a roster spot in the NBA. I mean, finding guys that have size, toughness, rebounding, shooting accuracy, all while being nimble enough to guard out on the perimeter. That's a big ass. But Cooper Flagg is that dude. I mean, he's far and away the #1 prospect. He's averaging 19 points, 7.5 rebounds, 4.1 assists, and the kid's only 18 years old. He's not going to turn 19 till like December. He shoots 37% from the 3-point line. He makes his free throws. He has a good assist to turnover ratio. He leads the NCAA in box score plus minus. That's not a small stat. I mean, he can come in, I think, in the NBA, and you look at your good power forwards in the NBA right now, and let's say at the top of the list you're looking at Banchero and Wembanyama, Evan Mobley, who we'll see tonight, Chet Holmgren, Jaren Jackson. I think give him a little bit of time, but I think he projects to be right there with those guys. I mean, I don't think he's a Wemby, but I think he can be as good as Paolo. I think he can be as effective as Evan Mobley, possibly better than a Jaren Jackson. So, there's a real reason why some teams are salivating to get a guy like this. And again, more so just because that position is so hard to fill. It's so hard to find good, skilled, big people in the NBA. And I think Cooper Flagg is that dude, man.
Bobby Gerould joining us, Bobby Brackets, right here on Sactown Sports as we get into the NCAA tournament. I want to talk to you about the reputational teams. Do we often see mistakes? I try to look out for this, and I'll give you 4 examples: Kentucky, UCLA, Gonzaga, and obviously 2-time defending champion UConn. These are known names. They're known teams that more often than not do really well in the tournament. How do you split the gap between, I remember this team doing so well every year, I'm going to pick them, and guys, it's a completely different roster than it was a year ago. This ain't your daddy's UConn Huskies, for example. How do you split that up?
Yeah, no, I agree, especially on UConn. Donovan Clingan is not there this year. Yeah. And even though I really do like Terrace Reed, he comes off the bench for them as a big, and I think he's someone that when he plays up to his maximum can really help UConn. So I'm not going to rule UConn out of winning that first round matchup, but then they would have to face Florida, and I think they'd be in trouble at that point. They don't have Stephen Castle, they don't have Donovan Clingan. This isn't the same team. They have not been good defensively all year, basically, and they've lost to a bunch of teams in the Big East. I just don't think UConn is anywhere near as talented as they were last year. So that's that. Now, the Bruins, J. Ross, Adai Mara has been balling lately. And since they've kind of unlocked him, I think they've been a much better and a different team. Whatever coach may say about them being soft, and I'm sure you guys have seen that rant and heard that rant. That was one of the more interesting things of the year, I thought, in college basketball was to see Mick Cronin just rip his own team and call them soft and entitled and delusional. all those things. But Eric Daly can play. Adai Mara can play, and it just seems to get better and better each time I watch him play. So I give the Bruins a little chance. I think, they're one of those. They'd have to face Tennessee in the second round, and that could be tough. But if they get an A game from the big kid, I think anything's possible with the Bruins.
I like that.
Bobby,
Yeah.
Also, when we're talking about going from blue bloods as universities, how much weight, if any, do you also put on coaches? And I think maybe the the best example is Rick Pitino in St. John's, a very, very a very trendy pick right now. Maybe not to win the whole thing, but certainly to go far. Obviously, they're a 2 seed. They play insane defense. But how much do you put on not just the players, but hey, this is Rick Pitino, or this is Tom Izzo, or this is Bruce Pearl, as opposed to Freddie Shankleton or whoever first year guy? How much do you give credit to the coaches when you're passing people in your bracket?
Yeah, it depends on who we're talking about. I love Kelvin Sampson. So I'm a big believer in the things that he does. A sneaky one, and a reason why North Carolina may not win in the next round is Chris Beard is a really good coach at Ole Miss. He's one that definitely would give me pause even after watching North Carolina and what they did last night. So yeah, I think you consider the coach, but at the same time, as good as Pitino is and as tough as St. John's is, they can't shoot threes, and that worries me a little bit. I mean, I think that can make you susceptible as early as round 2 against Arkansas or Kansas. And if Adu Thiero for Arkansas can't go, and I hear he's doubtful right now, that's a big blow to Arkansas. To me, he's their heart and soul. He's their best defender. He's the guy. I mean, that'd be like taking a college version of a Ron Artest off your team. You know what I mean? You need a guy like that. So for that reason, even though Kansas is down this year and people are not really excited about them, I could see Kansas beating Arkansas. And then, if St. John's just has one of their dreadful, dreadful shooting performances, which they've had a lot of, and still find ways to win, you never know. Kansas or Arkansas, someone like that, could knock off St. John's. They could be out early.
On the other side of that, is there, I guess, a coach or coaches that you go, yeah, no matter what talent they have, I just can't do it. I mean, it does happen. There's a guy to me, and maybe this is completely unfair. I feel like Rick Barnes has always had good teams.
Yeah.
And then they seem to not get as far as they should. And Tennessee's really good. But anyway, is there a guy or two that you kind of think the same way about, that you're going, well, their roster's good, but I just don't know if the coaching part will close the deal?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I necessarily think about the negatives that way, Jay Ross.
Yeah.
It's probably just be more like coaches that I have a lot of admiration for. Oregon. You figure they're gonna get by Liberty there in the first round, but then they have to play Arizona. And Tommy Lloyd, I like the way he plays. He came from Gonzaga, and they play that fast tempo. I think they have the personnel to play that way. And so I think Arizona can be a pretty good team and possibly beat Dana Altman and Oregon. But that Oregon Liberty game, I wanted to mention, there's a kid in doing the research for this tournament. I came across this kid that plays for Liberty. His name is Talon Peter, and didn't know anything about it. He's 6'4", 185. He's playing in his first year of D1 basketball. So he was a kid that kind of floated around in D2. Just now, at the age of 23, he's playing his first year of D1. But this year, he is shooting 46% from three-point range. He leads the entire NCAA in true shooting percentage, leads Conference USA in box score plus minus. So this kid can clearly play. And so I'm interested to see him just as, a first-time guy. I've only seen highlights of him, but I want to see, he has 32 dunks on the season, as well as shooting 46% from three, right? So, yeah, right. This is a player, right? Like the numbers certainly say that he's a player. So we'll see if that comes to fruition or not. But that's the part I love about about the tournament is kind of getting to see some of these
Mhm.
guys that are maybe a little bit off the radar. I love watching also, guys that are connected to NBA players. You've got Augustus Marshallonis from St. Mary's is the son of Sarunas Marshallonis. You got
Yeah.
Jace Richardson from Michigan State's the son of Jason Richardson. Um, you guys, you guys are old enough to know the name Harvey Catchings, right? The former
Yep.
76er. So his
Yep.
grandson, Kanan Catchings, is on BYU. And while he's still trying to kind of figure it out, I've seen him go crazy this year, kind of in the way that Jalen Wells did last year at times with the shooting. And you think, man, this kid has a chance to be special. So that's the kind of interesting stuff that I like.
By the way, just since Bobby threw it out there, not for nothing, but yesterday I was watching highlights of a 19-year-old brand new signee for the Milwaukee Brewers absolutely launch balls out of the park. 19-year-old Jaden Fielder,
Wow.
grandson of Cecil Fielder, son of Prince. Yeah, guys.
We're all getting old.
We're all getting
Yeah.
up there.
That doesn't seem possible, right?
Bobby,
That doesn't seem possible.
look at that last year's, Elite Eight, Final Four. Really, in the eight, you had your number 11 NC State. You had the 1 and 2 seeds in there as well on a couple different sides. You also had Clemson, number 4 Alabama, upsetting number 1 North Carolina. I know we've kind of covered this a little bit, but last year was weird. But also there were people that said, nah, you've got the NIL and it's changing things forever. If last year's, I'm just going to throw a random rating out there. If last year's tournament was a 7 out of 10 on the weird and unexpected meter, what do you think this year's is going to be?
I'm hoping that it's a lot chalkier, Dave. How about that? You know what I'm saying? Based on my brackets.
Right.
I've tried to make a case for some of these, and I want to be fun and exciting and flashy with my brackets and give you guys something to chew on. But outside of, like I said, New Mexico and North Carolina, I'm not sure that I'm getting there. I give Yale, Vandy, and McNeese a little bit of a chance. And if McNeese should win the first round, then they would get Purdue most likely. I'm not a fan of Purdue at all this year. Although Braden Smith is a really nice point guard, but I don't really care for the rest of their team. So and there's a coach right there. How about that, Jay Ross?
There you go.
Painter. Yeah, he seems to mess it up sometimes. So, so maybe that's one. Maybe that's one. Maybe that's the one where if McNeese gets by Clemson, maybe they can beat Purdue and they end up going. Will Wade is a good coach. He's an interesting character in college basketball, but he seems to be a pretty good coach and obviously a good recruiter. Way ahead of the game on the NIL thing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what did you land on then for your last four, final four?
Well, let's see. Which are we at? Sean Cunningham 1 or Sean Cunningham 2? Or,
you can give us a couple options.
I'll give you the same option I always give Jason. Bobby, I'm handing you a briefcase with $250K in it, and you got to put that briefcase on top of one of them brackets. Which one's your final four? Yeah.
Well, here's stand by to be shocked.
Oh.
I have Auburn, Florida, Duke.
Oh no,
Tennessee. How about that?
Oh, there's one number 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
I snuck in a number 2 on you. And I got Florida and Duke in the final, and I have Duke cutting down the nets. And I'm obviously hoping that Cooper Flagg is okay and everything's good there. I mean, it's not just Cooper Flagg. They've got Concanibal, they have Malawach. A little concerned about one of their injuries to Brown, who has a bad shoulder right now. Not sure. He's one of their best defenders, so I'm not sure if that will affect him. Obviously, it could. I begrudgingly have Tennessee in there, and I reserve the right to change my mind, Jay Ross, maybe. And I might do the B. Gerould 1 and the B. Gerould 2, and I'll have Tennessee in the Final Four in one of them, and in the other one, I will not have Tennessee. I probably have Gonzaga or Illinois if I had to. Illinois has a good freshman center that's a big 6'9" kid, Morez Johnson, that I'm not the comparison guy, but there are some that say he's a little miniature or a younger version of Bam Adebayo.
Oh.
Yeah, Morez Johnson, and then they have kind of a combo guard, Yakachonis, who is going to be a lottery pick. So Illinois got a little more talent than maybe some people realize.
And what was the guy, Talon? What's his face? 46% or whatever?
Talon Peter.
Ah, gotcha.
Talon Peter. What a great name, right?
What a that's why I wanted to remember it. Yep. All right. Where can people go to see your expertise, read it, and do better in their brackets?
hoopobsession.com. I have 3 things that I had just put out here in the last couple days. It's mostly from an NBA draft scouting standpoint, just players to watch. Did one that's outside the obvious, the guards to watch in the tourney, then forwards to watch, and then the centers and the low percentage shooters, which I'm always interested in because mostly you have to shoot, but we all know there are exceptions to that rule in the NBA. Giannis, Dyson Daniels, Franz Wagner, Jalen Johnson, guys like that don't shoot it but are still good basketball players. So that's the deal.
Nice.
Hey, looking forward to it. It's our couple weeks per year with Bobby Brackets. He'll be joining us throughout the tournament to help and predict and analyze and all that fun stuff. Always appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you, guys. Have a great morning.
All right, you too. That is Bobby Gerould. We're way late for a break. We will take that now when we return. What the hell are we doing when we return? Talon Peter. It's my favorite name. Last night in the NBA, standings, watch, and more before we get to who's out, who's not.